Welcome to
the Dork-Bajir Chronicles,
where an expert
and a new expert,
read through K.A. Applegate's stunning sci-fi serial,
Animorphs.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Come on, get in here.
Welcome to the Dork-Bajir Chronicles, a podcast where we read through the Animorphs series one book at a time and talk about it every week. Today, we'll be talking about Animorphs number 42, The Journey. I'm Tessa the expert.
And I'm Brayden. A big bottle of fresh Vaseline to wipe over your face for skincare and okay, let me take that again. No, I'm a stem cell. I'm a little stem cell just in your body, ready to become anything you want or need, baby.
Without any further ado, we're gonna jump headfirst into
Ooh yeah. Ooh yeah. Yeah.
Our first piece of fan mail comes to us on
Welcome
Twitter
to
from
The
Writing Zard.
Dork-Bajir Chronicles.
Writing Zard
Where
says,
an
"Hey,
expert
Dork-Bajir, for your
and a
speaking
new
tree
expert
episode regarding book
read through
31,
K.A.
it's a
Applegate's
shame that
stunning
you said we couldn't
sci-fi
kill Tom's
serial,
Yeerk'd to solve the plot
Animorphs.
because the most
Join
foolproof
us.
way of doing it
Join us.
involves
Join
killing Tom's Yeerk'd."
Join
And they go on to
us.
explain, you kidnap Tom,
Come on.
you have Axe morph
Get in
him so
here.
no one knows he's missing, drop Cassie in his head in her Yeerk morph so you fool the controllers and the Gleep biofilter, and then drag Tom into the woods and starve his Yeerk out. Plot solved, and bonus, Tom and Cassie as a Yeerk can now spy on the sharing. Kind of like what Eric does with his Yeerk in the little brain cage that he keeps wrapped up in there, but involving Cassie instead. Second piece of fan mail comes to us again from Twitter. It's actually from Mikael, our former host of this very podcast. For those of you who don't know, who maybe you haven't seen it on social media,
Or you didn't notice he hasn't been talking in this podcast yet.
Mikael has joined Darby. They've gone on to do other things. You know, there's he says there's been a couple of boring real life reasons, and at least one of them being the impending threat of a Yeerk invasion. I think what he's trying to say is that he was secretly a Yeerk this whole time, and he only just got promoted to Subvisor 14.
But in all seriousness, he's a very busy guy. The man has been doing a lot of work for this podcast, and we hope that we can keep that up in his absence. We don't hope. We will. Jesus Christ.
Well, we can do it.
I know. I'm sorry. That made it sound like, oh no, we're so worried that Mikael's gone. But I mean, we are, but
We
not
miss
critically.
him. He was kind of like, the glue that held us together, and now without him around, who knows what kind of hijinks we're going to get into. Being the most extreme members. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
But we love you and we miss you, buddy. And we hope you still listen to the podcast so then you can hear us make fun of you behind your back. Just like good friends do. You know what else good friends do, Brayden?
What?
Good friends crawl inside your nose.
And kill aliens.
You know that saying about you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose? Well, in this book, you can.
You never picked your friend's nose?
I didn't have friends.
We sort of blasted over it, but could we go back to that Josh, son of Chris, Writing Zard tweet quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the problem with that is Cassie would have to come out of the morph every 2 hours, and so would Axe have to go out every 2 hours, and I just don't think that's feasible while trying to maintain Tom as a member of the sharing,
Well, they would only have to do that for a little bit, and then Tom could, because I feel like Tom, once he gets his Yeerk on, this is a man who this is a boy really because he's still very young, but he went up against the hentai fuck beast. No, sorry, he went up against the 8 dragon in book 1 with nothing but his fists.
Well, really, they're all hentai fuck beasts.
Yeah, you got me there.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like he would almost take any opportunity to fight against the Yeerk's. So once his Yeerk is dead, after 3 days, all that has to happen is they have to have Tom convincingly, Axe has to go down and visit the Yeerk pool just one bare moment of time, and then they can leave and be good until Tom comes back and can be himself.
I feel really personally offended that you just teamed up with this Twitter person against me. I mean, we're comrades. We're sisters and brothers in arms in this fight, and you just completely just bulldozed me.
What can I say? I love disagreeing with you. It's my favorite thing to do. But you do have a point, because Cassie would have to be in Yeerk'd for definitely more than 2 hours. Well, swimming, how long do you have to stay in the Yeerk pool to feed to be believable? What if there's a great big lineup one day and you get into the Yeerk pool and it's hour 1 minute 58 and you have to demorph under the pier again? That's too risky to do all the time.
Okay, yeah, no, you got me there. Yeah, you got my point there. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm rambling now.
The 17 yous didn't give it away. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, we're already falling apart. No, we're not. We can do this. So back to friends and picking noses. It's a Rachel book, and the kids start us off right in the middle of the action, which they've been doing the last couple of books, and I really enjoy it. And Rachel's like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking rip this Dunkin' Donuts guy in half. She explains to us that the Yeerk's have started experimenting with personal Kandrona pools that you can just get and keep in your house, and then you don't have to go to the Yeerk pool all the time. You just have this in your house, and it's an easy snack. And she's like, this would be a bad idea, because the Yeerk pool is, if all the main bad guys hang out there, then we know that we can just go and do some damage, and we don't have to worry about it. But if it's something somewhere else, if it's in all these people's separate houses, this is a bad thing. So she's explaining that while she's also completely destroying all of these human controllers. There's actually quite a bit of carnage that happens. Like, she looks back in through the abandoned Dunkin' Donuts building that they were using as cover for this whole scientific experiment, and there's just she just talks about all the bodies littering the floor. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's all a lot of very interesting world building for something that doesn't matter throughout the rest of the book.
Yeah, it's really a lot of specific detail for this one set, and then they move out of the set almost immediately.
Exactly.
They go into an alley, they start demorphing, there's gross descriptions about demorphing, and then flash, there's this brilliant beam of light all of a sudden. What's that? Well, that was a disposable camera, and there's some kid who's running away, just having taken the photo of his life. And Axe is like, yes, I think that was one of your cameras. And so they chase this kid, track him to this kind of shitty apartment building, and they're like, okay, we have to get this tape. We're going to trade off. We're going to do surveillance as owls all night long to kind of look and see what's up. Make sure he doesn't leave, that the camera stays right there. The gang meets in the morning to talk about what they're going to do with this camera situation, and their meeting gets interrupted by a Barbie mobile that rolls in, being driven by a tiny little spaceship, and it's our good friends, the Helmicrons.
This was legitimately awesome, by the way. That's just such an awesome mental image. Just like this jerry-rigged, this is something straight out of, Home Alone. A jerry-rigged, they've described it as the ship out of Star Trek, the Vulcan ships, the other Vulcans, the not Vulcans. I'm just gonna say Klingons. It looks like a Klingon ship just strapped to a Barbie doll, moto cross mini thing, and I just really liked that. I just really liked that a lot. It was just really nice.
It's just a really good visual to picture. It's like thinking about Elfanger driving on the Taxon homeworld in a yellow convertible drinking Dr. Pepper.
Yes.
Like, it's great. So they're like, oh, fuck, these guys. The Helmicron ship is like, haha, we will kill you. Fuck you. We're the Helmicrons. And they go to the freezer and start cutting into the freezer because that's where Cassie has hidden the morphing cube. Rachel and Marco are like, well, we're going to destroy them. And Rachel elbows Marco in the head as they're both going for the ship. And Marco falls over and beans his head on the freezer, which, ouchie, he falls down. And then all the Helmicrons run out of the ship and up Marco's nose. Y'all.
That was a fast run.
This is one of those classic sci-fi tropes of exploring the human body.
And I would just like to point out something that I thought was very interesting. I believe that the title of this is inspired by The Fantastic Voyage, a 1987 movie with a very similar theme about human beings being shrunk down to be able to enter another human being's body. I just thought that was an interesting parallel. Fantastic Voyage, The Journey. I just see that mattering, you know?
It was probably, and it's a Rachel book, it was probably inspired by that, but I think it's also fair to say that it might just be coincidence because, like, you're journeying in upside a body. There might just, of course we're going to call it The Journey, but I like how there's more than one piece of media where people get shrunk and go into a human body, and then it's described as a very fancy trip.
Did I say 1987? I meant 66. Holy shit, where's my head at?
Oh, man. It's as soon as Mikael told us that he was going to be leaving, we did a bunch of Dork-Bajir cocaine, which is basically just ground up pine needles, but it does get you very stoned.
I did have a small seizure when he told us, "You will never see me again. I'm going off planet.
Redacted.
Needs me." Oh, shit. I wasn't supposed to mention that.
Well, it's okay. We'll bleep it out.
Mikael is the first member of Space Force. Space Force is real.
So Axe is like, okay, well, you know what? We'll just do what we did last time. We'll shrink ourselves down. And
President Trump is an Andalite.
We'll run after the Helmicrons, and this will be fine. And Marco's like, I'm extremely grossed out. But also, we have no idea how else to do this. They make a bunch of references to the Magic School Bus. And then the kids get shrunk, but they keep shrinking. They end up getting way smaller than they did back in book 24. Then there's a shift. The next chapter starts, and Marco is describing. And it's very strange because the guys that are shrunk are now on the bottom of the barn, like the floor of the barn, and they're being attacked by a beetle. And Marco is like, oh shit, my friends are being attacked by a beetle. I have to get the beetle away, but also not kill them, and I can barely see them. And it's not as high stakes to hear it from his point of view, as I'm sure it was very scary hearing it from, like, living it if we were still in Rachel's point of view. I'm wondering if they did that first switch there just to get you used to it, because they do swap point of views a couple of times.
Well, I could imagine sort of what I envisioned was they might have written a couple of these chapters from, like, both perspectives and seen which one worked. It might have, and sort of the way I envision it could have possibly happened was they wrote this from Marco's perspective. Yeah, it's a little less interesting from our side of things, but the only way I could really imagine them describing it from Rachel's perspective was, we saw a giant beetle, and you know, you get a lot of good imagery out of that probably, but in the end it's just a beetle that she's describing.
Yeah.
And then you see, like, and then a big, slightly tan, very rough wall comes down and crushed it, and then we climbed it. And the only way that you can really sit, and then I realized it was Marco. It's very vague imagery to just get to the point that, and it was Marco.
Yeah, and they did have a similar thing, I think, in book 24. A cockroach attacked them while they were small.
Yeah.
So they would just be repeating themselves. So they don't really know. They just know that they seem to be smaller than they were before, but whatever. This is fine. They all hang on to a piece of hay, and Marco puts him up his nose, and they fly. They turn into birds so they can fly up the nostril cavity, and then they run into the Helmicrons. Now, if we remember from book 24, Marco and Cassie were kidnapped by some of the Helmicrons, and they found out that they have a strange gendered society because they happen to have, like, anyway, The females were like, oh, we're high and mighty and in charge, and the males were their servants. Well,
Yeah.
Marco and Cassie gave the males a pep talk, and they were like, okay, you guys can be rulers too if you wanted to. So now we see the after effects of that. This whole book 42, the males and the females are both convinced they're the best, biggest hot shit ever, and they're fighting for glory with each other. So they come across the Helmicrons. Someone has gotten stuck in this terrible pit. And they're like, well, this is obviously more glory for the males because we weren't the ones that get stuck. And the kids get closer and they realize that they're a lot smaller than the Helmicrons.
I'd just like to point out, the Helmicrons talk a lot more about gender in their little journals now that the authors have revealed to us that they have these gender dynamics than they did in the original books.
I think it's because in the original books it was 2 different spaceships that were fighting, and now they're both on one spaceship. So it's the genders that are fighting.
Oh, were they split by gender on the spaceship?
No, they weren't split by gender, but all of the males were subservient to the warring females with the swords because they're all sword lesbians. So it makes sense. They're very scared. Very powerful, very great. But now they're all like, you know what? We all want power. And so instead of splitting them up between the captains of a ship, they're all on the same ship and they're just like, we hate each other. There's this windstorm that is described and the kids are all still birds. And Jake's like, get in the snot. They realize that these pits are snot pits in his nose, which is very disgusting. And there's this big windstorm. They have to get in the snot so that they don't die from the wind. Then we switch back to Marco's perspective. Or no, sorry. First, before we switch back, it's discussed about how the Helmicrons have a battle, and then one of them starts shooting and shoots the ground in the nasal passage where they are, which is disgusting, and blood is like oozing out everywhere, and then they continue going on. And then Marco's perspective, he's like, well, okay, I just want to like sit and be chill. I don't want to do a whole lot. Like, we have this kid with the camera that we have to deal with. Why don't I go deal with that? So he goes to the apartment building, climbs up the fire escape to find the apartment, sees the camera sitting in the apartment that we think is his. He goes inside to go get it, and then he hears a dog coming, and it's a pit bull who's very angry that someone is breaking in and gives him a big old bite on the wrist. And he's like, fuck, and he falls out. He escapes. He beats it. Like, he gets the dog to go. He runs away. He goes back home, and as he's biking back home, he has a nosebleed. So that was cool, but I thought that they kind of tie it in together because as I was reading, I don't know if this happened to you, Brayden, but as I was reading the Rachel bits, it didn't feel like as much time was passing as it did in Marco's time.
Yeah, I feel like, you get that a lot with, because Marco is like also at the same time living his life. It's a bit more varied. You can fit a bit more variety into doing day-to-day life things than you can into just like there's only so much body horror you can do,
It's just like I was just wondering, I mean, they're very small and comparatively they have to travel a great distance, but like, wouldn't they have caught up with the Helmicrons a lot sooner? I don't know. I felt like the kids could have finished off the Helmicrons in just a couple of hours instead of like over 12 hours that it ended up taking.
Mm-hmm.
It describes the nosebleed scene and it links them back, but the windstorm, which we have to assume is some kind of sneeze, that's never described. I thought it would be funny if he like has a bit of a sneezing fit on the way to the apartments and he's worried that he sneezed out his friends and then everything seems to be okay. But anyway, that's a very small nitpick.
When it first described the nosebleed from Marco's perspective, my thought was going to be that they were then going to reveal that Rachel or one of the other Animorphs had tossed a Helmicron out of the nose, and Marco, when he wiped his face, just like crushed it.
That would be gross and also very cool. That would have been, yeah, if they had like, he felt something tickling in his ear, he like scratched it and there was Helmicron on his finger. Oh, gross. They decide to morph battle morphs and then also some morphs that can see in the dark. So there's these 2 owls that are like the size of flies compared to the Helmicrons. There's this very small cat-sized elephant that Rachel turns into, and they try and fight the Helmicrons, and it doesn't work at all because the Helmicrons are
cat-sized.
So,
cat-sized to the Helmicrons, Jesus.
To the Helmicrons. So the perspective is very strange because we know the Helmicrons are like a 16th of an inch. So then, but if that was a regular sized person and the elephant is the size of a cat, then the gang estimates that the Helmicrons are about 100 times bigger than they are, just versus Axe's estimations. Yeah, so they attack the Helmicrons, and the Helmicrons are like, "Aha! You weak aliens have fallen for our trap. Now we're holding your friend hostage, and will not come out until you give us the morphing cube." And they try and reason with them. Well, why don't you guys come out first, and then we'll give you the morphing cube. Axe suggests doing a double cross. And that doesn't work because the Helmicrons are like, okay, bitch, well then half of us are going to stay in here until you show up your end of the deal. Which Rachel doesn't like at all. Some things happen. The Helmicrons are trying to get to the heart so that they can kill Marco. And they end up falling down a tube. Rachel's holding on to the boot of one of them, but gets pulled over. And sploosh lands in a big pit of stomach acid. So then we get a really disgusting scene description about Rachel continually dissolving in acid.
Yeah, that's something you don't see talked about a lot in fiction or even in video games that include acid. You don't really ever hear exactly how much it fucks up the body. People get dipped into acid and then have pretty horrifying burn marks essentially, but you never get and then their eyes didn't the part that gets burned does not. You never see in Borderlands they have acid as a damage type. You never get blinded by it permanently.
Whereas Rachel describes as her eyes are eaten away being in an elephant. It's so gross. And then she has to demorph to human, and so it's eating at her skin all over again. Cassie morphs humpback whale. Good old Cassie. All the team climbs on her back while they figure out their next move, and they see the Helmicrons have sliced open a hole leading to a bloodstream, and they're exiting through the hole. And they're like, okay, well, these Helmicrons must be dying then because they can't breathe. There's no air if they're in a bloodstream. And then they're like, wait, maybe Helmicrons don't need to breathe air. We already know they're fungible from book 24. They can't really die. So what if they don't actually need to breathe? So team gets really grossed out by that, and they morph hammerhead sharks and get into the bloodstream. And then there's a really fun bit about how the blood vessels just brush against their gills and they get oxygen that way. And then you'll think about those sci-fi questions about, well, if you actually shrunk, then the oxygen molecule will theoretically be too big to go into your own body and to do all of this stuff, so you would actually suffocate. But we're not gonna think about that bit of the sci-fi.
Well, Tessa, you know what the answer to that is?
What's the answer to that?
Nah.
No, doesn't happen.
Nah.
Doesn't happen. We're good.
The dinosaurs didn't have feathers. Who are you going to believe? Scientists or us? Who really saw dinosaurs?
Yeah. Classic.
I'm Tobias.
Classic
I'm hot.
Animorph. It cuts back to Marco. He's sitting at home. He bandaged up his hand. He calls the Chi because now it's dinner time. Kids have been inside him all day. He hasn't heard about them being back. Yeah, what kind of gangbang? Woof, just tiring. So the Chi go and impersonate everybody else again, and Marco is just sitting at home just getting furious. He's getting so angry. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna get this tape. I'm gonna get this camera again. This is fucked. The apartment building is under surveillance by the Chi, so he knows that, if they'll contact him if this kid seems to leave anywhere. So that's good. But he takes some steak, defrosts it, and bikes on over to the apartment building. Cut back to the bloodstream, and Rachel's having a beautiful Miss Frizzle moment, looking at the white blood cells and the red blood cells and this and that and what's going on. And there's a very strange, spiky kind of thing that terrifies her deep in her core, and she doesn't know why. I wonder if that'll come back. They assume that they're in the liver because there's all of these little bits that are getting shot in all these different directions, and they decide we're going to go up this bloodstream. We think this leads to the heart. Marco breaks into the apartment again. He has the steak, tosses it to the dog, grabs the camera, but then somebody is outside the bedroom door. They're in the hallway. Hey, Fluffy, what are you barking at? Marco jumps into the closet. It's like, fuck, I'm so fucked. And then he decides to morph.
He says fuck. That happens in this book. They say
happens,
fuck.
Yeah, no, it happens for the first time. They say fuck. I don't know if they did this for any of the reprints beyond 1994 when this book was actually published in 1994, which is interesting because book 41 was published in 2001?
Well, 1994 is Clinton was in the White House, and he said, I believe while getting a BJ in the White House, you're now allowed to use curse words in children's books. and I quote, Marco cursed to himself, fuck me, fuck all the angels and saints, fuck that fucking dog, fuck.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting... This book does a lot of interesting things that kind of break away from Animorphs canon. Like splitting the narrative when it's not a Megamorphs book, and just having Marco drop a bunch of F-bombs. Well, he decides to morph Cockroach while he's hiding in the closet. And he's like, fuck Jake, fuck the mission. Because he was expressly told at the beginning, earlier this morning, don't morph anything. We don't know what's going to happen if you morph while we're inside you. Z-Space is going to get all kinds of fucky. Axe starts to explain some stuff of what he thinks, and they're all like, in English, please, we don't understand your strange alien ways. So once again, we are denied Axe's beautiful lectures on cool alien science. So they're in the heart, they're battling the Helmicrons, and then all of a sudden everything starts to change, and it's really fucked up. They start yelling at Marco, what's going on? And Marco's being dismissive, and it's like, oh, now you want to talk to me. The Helmicrons start shooting their Draken beams. Marco doesn't speak for a while, and they realize that he's dead, and they're like, okay, well, we have to get out of here. Everybody, let's go.
Not to give away the goat here, but they realize his heart has stopped.
Is that what it is? Because I know he's also just not responding. And I'm like,
yeah, well, fair.
Is he just being an asshole? And it's just like, no, I don't want to respond to you guys. Like, how rude. Well, somehow, I don't even remember how, and I literally just read this book today, but they somehow convinced the Helmicrons to leave. I think one of them picks up a Draken beam that the Helmicrons have, and they get the Helmicrons to leave, and Axe is pointing a Draken beam at them so they don't run away, and then they're able to talk to Marco, and Cassie's like, I don't think he's dead. Like, cockroaches can survive anything. So they talk to Marco, and he wakes up or something. Anyway, he demorphs, and he's fine. Everything's fine. He morphs a seagull. The kids jump back on. He grabs the camera. They go back to the barn. Helmicrons unshrink them. They gas up the Helmicron ship, and they're like, okay, now leave Earth again. Like we said last time, don't come back, please. And then Rachel is sitting at home trying to do homework, thinking about that strange thing that she saw in Marco's bloodstream. And then she looks it up on the World Wide Web. I think it was the Center of Disease Control or something. It talks about how the rabies virus looks exactly like that thing that Rachel saw earlier. Huh. This is, that would be explaining, like, his rash decisions. Like, that'd be why he was so angry. That would be why he morphed. He didn't do it to, like, fuck the mission. He did it because he was actually growing insane. This could help save Marco from, Jake being super angry at him. And Rachel picks up the phone. She's going to go get Marco off the hook and then smirks. It's like, nah, I'll do it tomorrow morning.
That fucker.
So petty. So petty. There's a couple other things where, like, before they decide to shrink the rest of the team, Marco is like, I'm full of Helmicrons that want to kill me now. Cool. This sucks. And he's sitting on a hay bale feeling really grossed out and defeated, and Rachel sits beside him, and she thinks about hugging him, but decides that would be too weird, or like, no, I don't want to give him a hug.
Well, I guess
petty book.
Yeah, I guess very petty, a very petty little a very petty little story.
It was, yeah. What'd you think of this one, Brayden?
It was interesting. I'm not gonna, sing its praises to the high heavens as far as, like, technical qualities go, but I had a fun time seeing the interesting science fiction laid out before me.
I do. They have a lot of these kinds of episodes that happen. Like Futurama had a thing where they went inside the body.
Yes.
Rick and Morty. Like, it's a very common sci-fi trope.
Yeah. Very much inspired by, like I said.
Does it all really come? Was that the very first one?
Oh, yeah.
And everything is just an homage to that?
Pretty much any time that humans shrink down and go into a body, you can probably track it very easily back to The Amazing Voyage.
Well, that's just great. That's so neat.
Yeah.
And I like tropes like that. Like it's a fun trope where it's very gross. I've always found it really nasty. Because human bodies are disgusting, but it's like Osmosis Jones, right? Like it's also kind of fun.
Yeah. Except for, the Magic School Bus. The Magic School Bus stands on its own.
Oh yeah, Magic School Bus stands on its own. That's purely informational.
I really liked the line, ha ha, and free this month only, a bonus ha.
Yeah, there's some pretty good Marco one-liners.
Yeah. Should we do a quick OTP alert just for the pure sexual satisfaction?
Let's do it. Hit me up.
OTP alert!
How many people do you think got into vor because of this book?
Oh man, I mean, it didn't talk about it being like very sexy,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Well, no, yeah, not this in particular, but like,
Just this was like the gateway book.
yeah, how many people do you think that like, yeah, and no judging, but like, how many people do you think read comic books about the fox and the rabbit from Zootopia eating each other in a sexual sense, like, had some sort of stirrings while reading this book?
I actually, and maybe it's because I was on DeviantArt, and that's how you learn about fetishes when you're a teenager. But I think vor is more about like, it's about the constricting, right? And feeling everything pressing around on you, and you're helpless to stop it. And these guys were so little that nothing really constricted them until Marco turned into a ding-dang cockroach. So
Okay, but there's
I feel
also
like if anything awakens in you when you're reading this book and you're like, hey, I want to research more of this, and then you're just going to be disappointed because the rest of it is just like constrictor snakes and stuff, and it's not like exploring the human body.
okay, fair, yeah. That's really all I wanted to talk about vor. So
I know, now we've hit our mandated vor quota.
we are introducing a new segment into this episode that we like to call Animorphs
This segment is a segment where we take a problem from the book and we try and solve it with our great big adult brains. You heard it right, folks. Instead of doing the speaking tree, we're kind of doing a little sneaking tree.
You might have noticed this episode hasn't been as long already as a standard episode, with just sort of the two of us bouncing off each other. So we have decided to add a couple of the elements of the speaking tree every episode to this one and collapse them into one.
The thing is that Brayden and I agree on everything, and really, I can't even say that with a straight face. Okay, Animorphs ER. So,
Now, assuming you weren't also dealing with the problem of having a friend crawled into by evil aliens at the same time with gender issues, how would you handle another person getting a picture of you having done your secret power, in this case, morphing? Tessa, would you like to take the first crack at this one?
really, I think that I don't know why they would just immediately go to surveillance. They know he lives there. Why would you circle around outside the building as owls? Why don't you just look more intently? Like, you should be able to see the camera sitting on the furniture like Marco did when he crawled there as a human the next morning. Just bust in way sooner.
I believe the idea was that they didn't know if he was a controller, and if he was, he could have immediately gotten in contact with the Visor and the rest of the Yeerk's and then set up a trap for them. Made it look like he was just a human. They got an interesting snapshot, and then wait until the Animorphs get in his building to have a bunch of Dork-Bajir rush in.
Very fair. I hate that we always come back to using the chi, but why don't you ask the chi to go in and do some surveillance then? To
Yeah,
be like, hey,
just-
just literally look in You're not going to be doing any physical harm to anyone, so it's not going to go against your pacifist code. And anything that could kill us isn't going to kill you because you're very strong and powerful robots.
Or we could just use bombs. We could literally just blow up his house.
But it's a whole apartment building. Would you throw them into just that apartment and blow out just that apartment? Okay, what if it's not just bombs? What if it's like you get some kind of gas leak and you do it Fight Club style and you just blow that entire corner out? But also, you definitely kill everybody that's in there.
Did this guy have a corner apartment?
We can say he had a corner apartment.
Damn, so he had double the windows? This guy was living a fucking slick life of Zack and Cody.
We can even say that every floor had just one apartment. Every floor was its own little penthouse, and that's it.
I believe this is a situation where, doing something with a violent attack against an otherwise presumed innocent person could actually be justified. Like, you could just shoot or blow up the camera or hey, light the apartment on fire real quick. And if he's a Yeerk, like, he'll run for the camera and be yelling like, "The visitor will slay me if I do not keep this film." And you can be like, okay, now we can do whatever we want. Or he'll just like say like, "Oh no, a cooking fire," and rush down the stairs. And you can also put it out afterwards if you want with like some, I don't know, space shit. But other than that,
I think it would be easier to infer that this kid is not a controller just based on the fact that he went immediately to his house afterwards. Like, I don't think there was a lot of time in between when the kid ran away from where they demorphed and went inside to hatch any kind of plan. It's the 90s. He doesn't have a cell phone with speed dial. He can just be like, "Oh shit, Visser, I cracked the case."
Well, don't they have communicators, like walkie-talkies?
Would he have that on his person? That's incredibly suspicious.
Having a walkie-talkie on you?
A Yeerk'd walkie-talkie?
Well, I mean, if you just keep it in your pocket, it's no more suspicious. Like that's like saying, like, isn't it suspicious that you have a gun on you? Not if you don't see it. Not if you keep it in, like, a jacket pocket. It's like, it's like saying, if you don't see it, it's not suspicious. Like, nobody's ever like, isn't it suspicious that all these Yeerks carry Dracon beams? Well, obviously it is, but they don't let people see them, is the idea.
I don't think they actually carry the Dracon beams, though. A lot of times they're hidden away in compartments. I mean, Book 2, Chapman, he has a communicator that talks to the hologram of Visser 3, but that's in a secret room in his house. It's not something he carries. Has it ever been confirmed that they have communicators? I mean, I don't even think the Yeerks have paper. Remember that conversation?
You're totally right.
I feel like it's safer that they wouldn't, that they could assume, okay, if the kid ran home, here we go. I don't think he would have had any time to think of any cool plan. If he ran away from house and he started going to a known Yeerk location, like, oh shit, this guy's going right to that McDonald's. We have to stop him. But he just went to his house.
Well, now we're kind of talking less about, like, the solution, and we're debating more about the premise.
The premise, this is true. I think the safest thing to do would be send Axe in human morph inside, because his human morph is not related to, like, anything. There's no, that's Tom's host, like, brother, right? Or cousin. Like, there's nothing that can relate to him. He's not a copy of another person that already exists, Whereas the Yeerks would expect, might be more suspicious of someone else. Axe's human morph has no ID. So we already know this is not a very good neighborhood. They talk about the graffiti everywhere, and they kind of talk about how it's really run down and not a super nice block of apartments. And one thing you could do is just ring all of the apartments to try and break in your human morph, because somebody has probably ordered a pizza. You just buzz everybody until someone lets you in. If there's even, like, a lock on the front door and you can't just walk into the building. And then you look around on the outside and see if you get any of the heebie-jeebies. Like, are there holograms to make it seem like everything is okay here? No? Then we can assume that this guy's not a controller and just break in and steal that camera.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea.
Now we move on to our next segment.
My life, my morph.
In this segment, we decide on what the best use of the main morph in this book would be in our own personal lives. So, Brayden, how would you use an elephant morph in your life for purely personal reasons?
As an elephant, I feel that the best way to, well, the first thing I would think of is just go fuck all the lady elephants of the endangered species, use my legendarily quick refractory period that only takes as long as it'll take to morph into an elephant to save the entire species.
Hell yeah, repopulate the world with elephants, dude.
I am a constantly philanthropic soul with my elephant cum.
You're just so giving, so generous. Honestly, the amount of times that I've been, and I definitely talked about this on the podcast before, but the amount of times that I have been going grocery shopping and having to walk home carrying all of my groceries and thinking, oh my god, if only I could morph like a fucking elephant to carry all of these and then run home, I'd be home so much faster. And then I could be in my pajamas and rewatch the Animorphs TV series way sooner. So honestly, that's probably what I would do. Oh, and also picking up things from a tall shelf, because I'm not very tall myself. So if I have to get the fancy plates down for some reason, I could just, morph a little elephant. Use that really dexterous nose of theirs. What do our friends at home have to say about morphing
Home?
elephants?
I like that. We're going with home. Yeah,
Home?
Twitter is my home. Well, first of all, I am enjoying this take from @MoviePolls on Twitter. Longtime poster, longtime fan, good guy. I'd have a friend cut off my tusks, remorph with fresh tusks, and have them cut it off again. It'd be painful, but I'll sell the genuine ivory on black market at a much cheaper rate than competitors, so I end up dominating the supply, which would save real elephants from being poached. Which, off the bat, philanthropic as fuck. Way better idea than my cum thing. But at the same time, dude, do you know how much ivory it would take to outbid poaching? I appreciate it, but man, you're gonna go insane.
I think what we need to do is just get a couple of us to do this kind of free ivory scheme where we all morph elephants and
Well,
get our
that's not-
tusks chopped off.
Well, that's not the premise of the question. The premise of the question is, what would you do? And our man Movie Polls is saying, go insane. Drive myself to insanity. And probably accidentally kill a friend. Like, that's just reflex. Like, if you, Tessa, said to me, I'm gonna prick you with this needle, I would say, and even if I was like, yeah, guts up, let's fucking do it. I need into your frat, bro. And you poke me with a needle, I'm still gonna slap you, just reflexively. If I was an elephant who could do that, I'd fucking kill you.
I mean, but that's just because you like to slap. We don't know if Movie Polls likes to slap. From this kind of suggestion, I don't think he's that kind of guy.
Can we assume that, like, because a big part of Animorphs is that people, when they morph, their reflexes become that of the animal more than their own. Can we safely assume that he would not, as an elephant, would not slap someone? No, I'm going to say it now. We can safely assume an elephant would beat the shit out of anyone trying to saw off their tusks, even for a longer period of time. Like, you just can't assume. I could not.
So I think what Brayden is looking for now, friends at home, is faster ways of sawing through elephant tusks, which might be something you want to go in incognito mode for, because that sounds illegal as hell. What else do our friends on Twitter say?
Well, I enjoy Dr. Pete's take at the Kingle Mingle on Twitter. Freeing hawks from car adverts. Zynga.
Call back to book 3. I love it. We've also got at Ziegler Jaguar, who says ruining commercial sounds fun. Pretty sure that's the same reference.
A pretty popular take, particularly from at Kieran_Andrews and at Abnormal Mormon, is to improve memories, to take better tests. I don't know if that would translate to your human body, and I don't think they'd let you into the test to as an elephant.
No, I think you would have to take the test online. So this is for all of you kids at home who are doing online learning. That's what you could do. I do like a couple people here have said, like, at Tiger Wolf would probably just go out into the wilderness and wander around and enjoy being an elephant. And at Andalite Bandit, the Andalite Bandit, would also just hang out and be an elephant for like an hour and a half at a time. Maybe kick it with some other elephants.
Yeah. At Fly Cuttlefish pretty much has the same idea, but just to fuck with kids.
On Facebook, we have some more of the same kind of ideas. Using them more for entertaining people, like being the best circus animal in the world, or by committing violent, destructive crimes. That's by Pedro Salino. Bina Greenspan would use an elephant morph to make a nice treehouse. An elephant in a t-shirt also gives me opportunity to publicize artwork and favored politicians.
Elephants are pretty much nature's billboard.
It's, yeah, you can kind of do whatever you want when you're an elephant. And that's the moral of the story that I got when I watched the Tarzan Disney movie.
When you're an elephant, you can do anything.
Next week, we are going to be talking about book 43, The Test. Yes, friends, we are actually going into another book. That's why we moved all this, some of the speaking tree stuff into this segment, because there's only 56 books in this series, and we're on book 43. We're getting into the end zone. Let's kick it up a notch.
Predictions! Predictions!
Brayden, what are your predictions for this book?
It's called The Test. It's Tobias. He's morphing into a Taxon. What are the chances this doesn't have to do with the Elemist? I mean, what are the fucking chances? I guess that Tobias is going to, similarly to the attack, except this time through Tobias's eyes, the Elemist is going to put them in a situation where they have to come up against Krayak's forces. Tobias is about to face his biggest fear. Oh, maybe the girl with the artificial arms is going to come back into play.
Oh,
what's her name again? Taylor. Maybe Taylor is going to come back into play, because that's themed pretty closely to Tobias and fear.
And also, that was the last Tobias book that we did read, was book 33.
Oh my god, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, right. We've done...
It has been a while.
We have just done TV shows and megamorphs for so long. Wow.
So long. Yep.
No wonder Mikael left this fucking podcast.
It's like, you did it right after the TV series. You should have done that before.
That was as good as kicking him in the fucking balls. Of course he left.
I know, there's no coming back from that. I think he gave his heart and soul into every one of those TV show episodes, and now he is a desiccated husk.
I'm surprised he didn't shoot us on the way out.
The good news is that his soul lives on in all of our past episodes as Horcruxes. So, Mikael's always with us.
Tessa, where can people find more of our stuff?
You can find more of our stuff on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, or Facebook.
And please remember to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, or else I'll fucking leave too. Is that weird? No, that's too much.
No, I like that. That's good. We are just going to give a little shout out to some of the folks that have subscribed to us on Patreon at the Dork-Bajir level or higher, just as an extra special thank you for these cats being around for so ding-dang long.
Yeah, because actually, we will be changing the shape of our podcast, and sort of how much we are doing with it. We felt it appropriate. We will be freezing the Patreon for now.
Well, just like
Well, until the end of the series.
Mikael was really like the talent, and it just feels, scummy if we're going to be taking that money and you don't even get to hear his beautiful voice. We'll keep an eye out for Mikael's special midnight ASMR corner.
And none of you ever even got to see him dance.
Oh. To see him dance was a thing of beauty. But...
my God, the sexual energy that man had in his wrists.
So, one last time, we would like to give very special shout-outs and thank yous to Shanna, a beetle from another point of view.
Spencer, a beetle from a third point of view. Who is it? Who is it? It's not the Elemist. It's not Krayak.
It's the 5. Anne-Marie Ellis, the colon. It's a body joke, and they almost went into the butt, and then they didn't. And I'm proud of them for not doing it.
Elemist, I didn't want to remember that, and then you reminded me of that.
Steam-driven, just sitting in your room and getting so pissed off, because sometimes that's all you need is just anger.
Andrew Vila, what?
I don't know, I'm having a hard time thinking of good themes that aren't just more body parts.
Michael Armenta, God, I am just keeping up with you on these. What the fuck? I'm getting ahead of you on this one.
Greg Della Posta, blowing out that corner suite apartment.
Anyanka, that sounded sexual.
Mariah Wamby, everything sounds sexual to you, Brayden.
Zachary Vaudo, the last one ever. Congratulations, Zachary.
You are our final winner, and you will receive a package from a mysterious stranger in the 7-Eleven parking lot on a Tuesday night. Don't open that package. For the Phantomorphs, I'm Tessa the Expert.
And I'm Brayden. And you know what? I think I'm gonna be the last one standing by the final episode.
This has been Final Morphs.
The Last Bajir Chronicles.
The last of the Bajirs.
The dorkest of the Bajirs.
Dork your Bajir. Okay.
I'm gonna dork you in the Bajir.